Okay, ladies, one of the things we need to do before we start on our project is square up our fabric so that we've got our fabric edge that we're going to start with here cut straight. Now, if you'll see here, I folded this fabric and this edge here looks like it's lined up. But if you take and look across over further, this edge up here is not straight. You can see how this comes down across over here. So what we really need to do is these edges here, we need to make them straight first. So we need to line these two up. Usually it's the edge that may have the writing across it along here. So we need to do is fold that so that is straight and even along there, and then when you press it all out it should end up folding up flat. So let's flip this over. You want to press all that. Okay, so we've got that all nice and flat. And so when we do that, fold this over here. See here now how it is not straight on this edge. So we need to straighten this edge here up first, and then we can go ahead from that to start to cut our project. So let's turn this over. What you need to do is take on your ruler, I'm going to put this up on so it's in the screen some. On your mat, your ruler, find a straight line and line it up on the fold. Also, only fold your fabric once. Do not fold it and then try and fold it again because maybe your mat's too small. Take and invest in a larger mat if necessary, because when you fold it a second time, it really does something at those fold points to make it so that your fabric is not straight. So do not fold your fabric more than one time. So I'm going to line this up towards the bottom here a little more, so it might be out of the screen some, but I'm going to line my line up straight there. And then you're going to look at the side over here, and I can see right about where this line here is and right here is where I'm going to take my ruler. We're going to take our ruler here and make that straight. So across the bottom I've got it going straight, and now I've got my ruler here going straight. So I'm going to cut this excess off so that then that side is going to be straightened up. So I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. See how it's a little off? I'm going to go ahead now and straighten that up. So hold that ruler steady and then just take your rolling blade and don't remove your ruler until you've made sure it's cut. See, I've got a piece here that did cut all the way through. So if I need to go over it again, and then pull that fabric away from the side like I did. Now I've got a straight edge here, so when I need to cut my fabric, I've got this nice straight edge to cut my fabric. Now for this particular project, it needs to be 13 inches wide. So I'm going to line my edge up straight on the edge here, and I've got it straight on the edge over here. So let's move this over into the camera a little bit. Then I'm going to go over to my 13 inches, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece right here. I'm going to need to move this back because the camera's in the way some. Okay, so we're going to trim this here now. And then again, I'm going to pull this fabric away from the ruler before I lift my ruler up. I've got a spot right there it didn't cut through. If you have a dull blade, it might not cut through. Okay, so now I've got this piece here cut. So I know now I've got straight edges on both sides. So then you're ready to go ahead and start cutting your fabric into the other direction. So I know with this one, it needs to be 32 inches. Now I've got this selvage edge here that we don't want to account for. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off a little bit. So let's turn it this way. Usually it's about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So just line your ruler up. If you look here on your ruler, it'll have a line that I can line up across here and across there, so I know I've got it straight. And so I'm going to just cut off that selvage edge. And yeah, let me move this. We're going to just, I've got to get a new blade, it looks like. So if I have to get a pair of scissors and then just snip it. Okay, and then I'll go and measure this out to my 32 inches that I need it to be. So that is going to be down here. And again, I want to make sure that I'm keeping the line here straight as well as my line over there straight at my 32 inches. Then I can lay my ruler down and come over here to the end. And then we're going to trim this off. Okay, so that is how you're going to get your piece of fabric squared up. So we're going to be ready to move on to the next part of our project. Okay, for those of you who took the St. Patrick's Day pillow wrap class, there was some discussion about maybe making some changes on how that project is assembled. So I'm going to show you here what we're going to do for changes, because of the project that we did here in class, this piece extends from here and it's one solid piece that went across the back and folded and extended to here. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to have the back piece that I just showed you how I cut that. And then what we're going to do is make 2 strips, one for each side here, so that these strips will get stitched with this green piece to the front. And then after we've finished all of the front, we will take the piece that I showed you that I just cut, our new back piece will get laid on top with right sides together, and then we will sew it around, leaving an opening at the bottom so that we can then turn it right side out. So we've got the one piece that was cut at the 13 by 32 or 33 inches. And we're going to then do is cut our strips for the front. And they are going to be 2 3/4 inches. So on that straight edge that we had here, I'm going to lay my ruler on top at 2 3/4 inches. See if I can zoom this in at all. So the 2 3/4 is going to be 1/4 inch in from the 3-inch mark. Okay, so let's put my camera back in place here if I can. And and I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 of these pieces. Again, don't move that ruler until you know your blade is cut that all the way through there. So there's one strip cut. And then I'm going to line it up again so that this measures from here to here at 2 3/4 inches. And then we're going to cut that off. Okay, so now I've got my 2 strips here. So this is the piece that we cut before. It's going to be the backing. So it'll end up being like this on the back of our project. And then these are now going to be our strips that are going to go on each side, which will make assembling the project a whole lot easier than it was before. So I'm going to do here is go ahead and lay these stacked on top one another. And then that selvage edge that you have here, I'm going to go ahead and line my ruler up so that it's straight along this side here. And then just trim off that selvage edge there. And then you'll go ahead and open these up, lay them out on the table, and measure them to the size that it says in the directions. And then we'll go ahead and cut our little green border pieces that we have for our project. So we'll need to go ahead and trim these little pieces here next. Okay, I've got my green fabric that I'm going to use for the little narrow strips. As you can see here, my edge is not straightened up. I do have my selvage edges lined up here. So we're going to go ahead and straighten this up here. So what you want to do is make sure that on the folded edge, it's squared up over here. So now we know that edge over there is straight. And find the shortest piece across here. So it's near, this piece here comes over further. So we're going to line my ruler up so it goes straight across. And you can also take and on the markings on your ruler, I've got a line that comes here. I want to make sure that that's straight on that side as well. So I've got it straight here. And then I've got it straight on the line across up here. I'm going to get that lined up. Then we're going to go ahead and trim off this. So I've got a really nice straight line for cutting my strips. If I were to just take and cut from here over, obviously I'm not going to have a nice even piece. So now I've got a nice straight edge there. And what I want is a piece that is 1.5 inches wide. So I can then go ahead and measure 1.5 inches. Now, because of the direction I've got my fabric laying, if I have this right on the line here, I can use the lines on here and go 1 and then 1/2 is in the middle. So I can line my ruler up there. I can line my ruler up here on my mat so that you can see 1.5 on this side and 1.5 on this side, and then trim across. Sometimes depending on if you're right-handed or left-handed and the direction you have your fabric, laying down might determine if you can trim the fabric using this as ruler as a guide or using the mat as your guide. So I know I've done a 1/2 inch, which means I have a 1/2 inch remaining here and a 1/2 inch remaining here. So instead of moving my fabric, I'm just going to count that 1/2 inch and then put this over at 1. So now I've got 1 1/2 here and 1 1/2 there. So line that up nice and straight, hold this in place, and then we're gonna trim that. So I've got my 2 green strips. We're gonna wanna go ahead like we did before. You can stack these if you want to. And then carefully trim off that selvage edge. So I want to make sure I line this up straight on my mat this way, and then just line my ruler up this way straight, and then we'll cut off the selvage edge here. And we'll open these up and we're going to cut them the same length that we cut our other borders, which was at the 32 inches or whatever it is that the directions tell you to do. So we can lay these out and we'll trim them, and then after we've got those trimmed, you'll be taking these pieces after you've trimmed it and folding this green piece in half. And then with an iron, you're going to go ahead and give it a nice press crease. So we're going to want to have this folded and pressed so that it's going to be folded in half after we get this trimmed. Okay.